Hey, welcome to Rebel Business. I'm Mehul Patel. I'm back. I've been off the grid for a while. I know that. But I have returned. And what I've decided to do is try to work on one of my biggest complaints. One of the biggest complaints I've had since I started putting content out on YouTube is that a lot of the headlines that I see don't match what's going on the ground. So I'm taking advantage of living in New York, which has probably no less than a half dozen to 24 panel discussions or conferences per weekday. And I'm going to go to these. And then I'm going to come back and report to you so you don't have to go to these things. I'm going to talk to people at these conferences. I'm going to try to understand what's going on that isn't in the headlines. And I started this week going to a retail panel discussion because I walk around New York and I see what everyone else sees is a lot of empty storefronts. And that trend has been going on for some time. It probably started even pre-COVID. So I went to this retail discussion. It was at Fordham University. I believe it was sponsored by LAI, the Land Economic Society. And it was at 8 a.m. I was very tired getting up there, but I made it. I did make it. I hadn't been on a college campus in a while, so that was kind of fun. But the panel itself was reasonably interesting because you had two people from a large retail brokerage that was on the panel, along with somebody from city planning and another person from a private-public partnership. They had some pretty good information. Some of it was a bit academic, but it was all data-driven. What did I learn here? I learned that there's 142,000 storefronts in all 5 boroughs. I did not know that. And the vacancy is probably up in the high teens, maybe as much as 20%. What was also interesting was there was somebody in the audience who chimed in, and she had been pretty high up in city planning, and she had mentioned that in some of the major corridors, the vacancy is as much as 30%, which is a ton. That is a lot of freaking vacancy to have. The audience was pretty diverse as far as, I gotta say, age. There were some people that had a serious amount of gray hair, and then you, of course, had students, so a lot of the questions really ranged. But ultimately, it was really trying to understand how retail has changed. But the biggest thing that has changed is the city of New York is finally taking it upon themselves to get rid of quote-unquote stupid zoning regulations. The woman that was from city planning, those were her words. She said there were a lot of stupid regulations that were on the books, and they have been systematically cleaning those up. For example, if you owned a bar, and you didn't have a cabaret license, and you had the DJ spinning, and somebody started dancing, technically you are in a zoning violation. You needed to have this cabaret license in order to allow your customers to dance. So yeah, if you're out there, you're having happy hour, you hear a song that you like, you start dancing, yes, the owner of that establishment is, in fact, incurring a zoning violation, but there's no zoning police that come show up, and it tells you how ridiculous some of the zoning laws are in New York. For example, if you had this experiential retail concept, that's a big buzzword, experiential retail. Let's say you had that concept of I want to have a flower shop and I want to sell coffee there as well. Well, with the current zoning or past zoning, you couldn't do that because you couldn't have something called small production, which would have been the coffee, along with selling dry goods. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's how absurd some of the things are in New York zoning. What I found interesting here is that's how bad the zoning, that's how bad the retail condition here is in New York, where the city is actually changing their zoning. That takes just a massive effort. They usually don't want to do anything. They don't want to touch anything. They don't want to change anything. But for them to take such a extreme measure to clean up the zoning for retail tells you that it is pretty serious, and that isn't in the headlines. I don't see that when people talk about New York retail, that it really needs this serious change. So I found that to be interesting. I think the other takeaway is it's pretty clear people are really using analytics to figure out what kind of tenant should go into a space, and the tenant's using that data in order to decide if they want to go into the space. It's almost like what you see in the NFL. Everybody's using analytics, right? It used to be that the coach would just go off their gut. Now they've got a sheet with all the analytics on it, and sometimes they're deciding which plays to pick just on that. So it was interesting. Like I said, you walk around parts of Manhattan or Brooklyn or Queens, you see it. You see that retail actually has a lot of vacancy. You talk to any bar owners, they're saying that they're struggling as well. And one person did note that we just need more housing units. There's just not enough of that to activate some of these corridors, which is probably true. I live in the financial district. I've seen the retail here improve because they've been converting so many of the office buildings into apartments. So that was that forum, and then I went to another one. It started at 7:30 a.m. Again, I had to get up there early. It was raining. I fought through it. It was, I believe it was sponsored by the Gramercy Institute for marketing for financial products and institutions. I know that sounds pretty boring, but I gotta say, it was pretty interesting. A lot of topics about AI. But what I came away here that I haven't seen in headlines, honestly, was that, like the SEO traffic, all of that is going by the wayside, and they are going to be moving towards a winner-take-all algorithm. Yes, I know that sounds kind of scary, but the way I understood what the winner-take-all algorithm is that basically all the content that doesn't get a lot of eyes, it just crushes it. It puts it to the bottom and puts it in the dustbin. And it is really only going to promote one or two content leaders. Storytelling, that was the other big buzzword. If you want any content to take off online, you're going to have to do some serious storytelling. What other topics did they cover? The need for authenticity. That was a topic that came up over and over. Everybody kept saying that, look, it was a branding and marketing panel, so they're going to say authenticity. They also said that the branding is going to have some level of empathy. It has to have a human connection to it, because it is very difficult to get people to accept an AI avatar as your sort of navigator in anything, right? I know from being Gen X, being my age, there's no way I'm going to accept an AI bot for certain experiences that I have. Like, for example, I use a wealth manager. I have a financial advisor. I'm not going to rely on some AI bot. I want a human being to be able to call and talk to them. The other really interesting thing that I heard here that was contrary to what I hear in the headlines is they were saying, look, we are using AI for our branding and it's helping us with our marketing campaigns. It's great, but it is not costing less and it is not making us that much more efficient. What it is doing is it is creating a better product for us. And that is very much the opposite of what I've been hearing from CEOs of these AI companies. I mean, the head of the AI division at Microsoft, I think it was a couple weeks ago, said in 12 to 18 months, all of these white-collar jobs are going to be gone. The guy at Anthropic said the same thing. And these people were quite confident, saying that, yeah, we don't see that. We see that AI is going to proliferate and it's going to become something that everybody's going to be using in the industry, and you better learn how to use it if you're somebody coming out of college, because this is the tool of the future. But they did not really act, behave, or say anything that seemed like there was going to be an apocalypse in their industry. Now, granted, they might be a little biased. They don't want to come out there and be like, yeah, I'm going to be unemployed in a few months. Nobody wants to say that. But that theme of, hey, we're going to be replaceable, it just didn't come out. They were saying how much better their product has become, but you still need a human being to navigate it. And there's just so many apocalyptic headlines out there about this. And honestly, we're seeing stocks go down in value because of this, because they just think that, okay, we're just going to get rid of all of these people. I think over time, sure, these industries are going to get reshaped, but I don't think it's going to happen as fast as some of these headlines and stories actually are saying they are. I mean, it's a headline that's going to get a lot of clicks when you say, oh yeah, everybody's going to be replaced in 12 to 18 months. But is it true? Based on what I heard at this panel, at least in the industry of branding and marketing, they are not saying that it is. A couple other interesting things. One woman had a kind of all-encompassing description of what branding is today, and she said, hey, it's the customer journey, and it starts at the purchase, and it goes all the way through branding into the operations and the customer service you get after you buy or consume a product, whether it's a financial product or anything. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So that's what I got from this panel discussion. I talked to a couple people afterwards, and they kind of reiterated the same things. These branding campaigns take so much data now, and that nobody reads anymore. That was the other thing. Nobody freaking reads anymore. And so your branding campaigns have to be understandable within seconds. Absolutely split seconds. It's got to be graphical. It has to be quick. It's because nobody reads. And that's kind of sad to me, that they basically, to a man, to a woman, said, yeah, nobody reads anymore. Good luck putting out anything in long form. Nobody has the patience for it, which is kind of sad to hear, because I just feel like that's just going to make us dumber. And I have experienced that. I actually think people are getting dumber. Yes, I do, because they don't have the patience to even spend 18 seconds reading something. They need it to just be almost like osmosis when they see something. So that part was definitely discouraging, but not all that surprising. So this was my first week at this. I will be back in the jungle of New York, going to some panels and conferences next week. I'll report. Maybe I'll send some videos of while I'm out there. But I enjoyed this. I did learn some stuff. I was glad that I paid money and actually got something. I know I'm going to go to some of these and I won't, but you won't have to. So I hope you keep watching. I hope you subscribe, and I will see you next week.